And again, you don't have to be perfect, but if you aim for perfect, then the natural, if you fall short, you still have a lot of margin of error. If you aim to be sloppy, you don't have any margin of error. And none of this guarantees that you won't get hurt. Like, I don't know, and you may not know, what you've done physically prior to walking in the gym that already wore out a joint. When I was a kid, I remember subluxing a shoulder in a pool, swimming, and all of a sudden my shoulder popped out of joint and someone jammed it back into place. And years later, I ruptured the bicep and tricep on the other side, so it made no sense. But my point being is, that's not the type of thing you regularly think of. You don't really remember, gee, I fell this way, maybe this joint is a little weak. And you know, three like little cliches you can drop on message boards, you know, be short and punchy. It can be effective without being excessive. Challenge your fitness, not your safety. And you know, at this point, I want to work out smarter, then work out harder. So it's one thing to just try to brute strength your way, brute force your way into being in shape. I'd rather know what I'm doing, do it safely, and then worry about how to make it harder. Any questions? In the back.
I think the big reason why people are proponents of going down low in the squat is they argue that you needed to work your hips and certain muscles that you don't hit with a half squat. So what do you?
You know, I've read that also. I don't see that there's any foundation. I don't think there's any real support for that argument. I mean, I've read that also. I forget. I don't know if it's CrossFit or Dan John. And the thinking is by squatting so deep, you're training the deep muscles, right? There are safer ways to train the deep muscles, though. It still doesn't get around the fact that you've reversed the lumbar curve.
Can you please explain at least one or two ways to train the deep muscles?
Well, the adductor machine, the abductor machine, a split squat where you are balancing on one foot, or just using a BOSU and doing your squats without a bar on a BOSU, so there's some instability there. I mean, I think that's a case where you feel the exercise because all the muscles are stretched out, so you feel it, so it must be making them stronger. But in reality, you're just stretching the muscles and joint out by going so deep. Which is not the same, by the way, as just for mobility, like to just stretch or like a yoga type thing, by all means, squat deep, right? Because you do want to keep some passive range of motion. But my issue is with loading it in that position, with everything else that follows. In front.
Hey guys, we only have time for 2 more questions, but if anybody has any other questions that we don't get to, just give them to me, and I will ask him during the interview, and you'll still get your questions answered, okay?
Thank you. A lot of really good information, and listening to it, I think, pretty intuitive. I should have thought of that. So thank you for that. I do a lot of hot yoga, and I think it's really good exercise for me. It carries over into the activities I do, and so I don't spend a lot of time in the gym, and I'm wondering, is there a pitfall to the exercise I am doing, the yoga I'm doing, the exertion I'm doing?
I don't know. There is a book out called Science of Yoga by a guy named William Broad, who does a very thorough pro and con of yoga. Even though he likes doing it, he goes into like the downsides. So in general, I think yoga has a place. I try to do it daily. But that's not putting a barbell on my back. So I would look into like Broad's book. I'm pretty sure his name is William Broad, Science of Yoga, because that seemed to be a very fair look at, it was a look like this, only at yoga.
I train alone,
Right.
and so I try to stick to machines, but listening to your talk, it doesn't seem like a lot of them are going to be well suited to joint health. There are a lot of the lower quality machines. What would be your advice to me in the gym?
Don't let the weight push you into a stretch. You know, yes, there are a lot of low quality machines out there, right? And everyone has their opinion as to which are low quality. But your joints and body is the same from machine to machine. So the idea is to figure out what the joint positions are that are safe for you and use that regardless of the name on the machine. So for instance, if I was doing a chest press, I would no longer come all the way back here, all right? I would stop it here. And again, hands are in peripheral vision. So I stop here, whether it's a nitro chest press, whether it's a push-up on the floor, whether it's an old universal bench press. Don't let the weight push you into a stretch. Hands in peripheral vision. But the thing is to understand what your joints are supposed to do and get the sense of where that is, right? And use that on the machine regardless of what the machine tells you to do. Machines by definition aren't the enemy. You know, there's this myth about barbells are better for stabilization, functional activities, and machines aren't. But you could be doing a barbell curl and be all over the place, or be doing a seated machine curl with perfect posture. It's what your body's doing on it, not what the exercise asks you to do.
Really good speech. What's your take on machines versus free weights? You kind of covered it like now, but could you go more detailed into that?
Without really boring the hell out of everybody, because the problem is there's so many different machine designs out there that just to say a brand name doesn't do it justice, because there's, within the same brand name, different years you have wildly different designs. I don't think machines interfere with your athleticism, power, any of that stuff. I think it's perfectly legitimate to train safely on machines, because you can, a machine that you can set the bottom stop on, you got to try to get hurt. You really have to try. So you manage your posture on the machine, you do the exercise, and then you go practice your sport, or your martial art, or dance, or whatever it is. On the other hand, if all you have access to is free weights, same thing. Manage your posture, do the exercise under control. Don't put your joints into strange positions, vulnerable positions. Ultimately, it boils down to preference, right? So if someone comes to me and says, I have access to this kind of machine, I'll say, all right, here's how you should use it. Here's specifically how to use it. If someone comes to me and says, I only have dumbbells and a chinning bar at home, I'll help them figure that out also. Again, it's what you do with your body. I don't think by definition machines are bad, but some are terrible. Some are just badly designed, they're rickety, the angles are terrible, and they're like unfixably terrible. Okay?
We got one more over here.
Okay, I'll get you after.
So thanks for the speech first. And my question is, if you had to pick 5 basic exercises, which one would they be?
Nitro leg press, in my studio, nitro leg press, nitro vertical chest, assisted chin, 3, 5, huh? Maybe the crunch over the ball, and because I'm vain, incline curls with the dumbbells. Right? Completely non-functional, but if I was working out in a home gym, I would think of wall sit for the quads, push up, maybe with elastics once you mastered body weight. I'd rather people use an elastic over their back for resistance rather than go between chairs and use the distance. So what I say, wall sit, push up with the elastic band, chin up if you can do it, a 1 dumbbell row, 1, 2, 3, curls again. And also for vanity, maybe a side raise. However, it's entirely possible that leg press, chest press, and some kind of pull gives you 90% of what you're going to get out of weight training. It's entirely possible. It might be boring, but if that's not a concern, then yeah, those three might do it. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Bill.